Well, I don't know if you've watched those renovation shows that are shows like Fixer Upper or Property Brothers. Well, today we talk about tearing down the walls in the Fixer Upper of our lives, the life that we walk around in. Today we introduce a recovery renovation topic, open concept recovery. Welcome aboard.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, before we get to today's lessons, let me just give a couple of pieces of housekeeping. It's always interesting how people connect with me or find out about the podcast through Google searches sometimes, or it's just funny. Sometimes they hear me on a different podcast being interviewed. Let me just say that apparently that if you leave a review or if you click on 5 stars, it does help people find out about the podcast. So it's simple to do. Just as you're listening to this, I'd love it if you would either leave a review or click on the 5 stars. Helpful for you. Another thing that can help people get started is the website, bandofbrothers.care. Not everybody's heard of the website, but on there you will find a number of helpful resources. A lot of them are free. If you go under free resources tab, you will see a number of worksheets that you can download. And I think all you need to do is allow me to add you to the mailing list. And so that would be wonderful. On that, there's also the first free video of the Finding Traction course. So all of that you can find on the website, which is bandofbrothers.care, C-A-R-E. Also on there is information about how you can connect with one of the groups that we're starting. We're always starting new groups for both leaders as well as just regular Joes. So again, take a look at that. It's all on the podcast, bandofbrothers.care. Well, let's go back to this concept of open concept recovery. And I want to borrow heavily on this old home or renovation word picture. The very first house that me and my wife ever bought was for $49,000. My kids can't believe it. Did dinosaurs roam the earth? Or Dad, trucks cost more than that now. But that's what our first house cost is, $49,000. Looking back, it probably wasn't worth half that much. It cost us another $49,000 in sweat equity and frustration. The floors were bowed. The walls weren't straight. Nothing was level. Somebody had haphazardly added a bunch of rooms to the house without proper foundations. And when we finally moved away and sold the house, it was a relief to get rid of it. Now, if you are a real estate person or renovator, you're probably familiar with the idea of an open concept floor plan. Now, normally older houses like to wall off all the rooms from each other. The living room was separated from the kitchen. There was also often a separate dining room for who knows what. But there were all the rooms walled off, floor to ceiling, walls, sometimes with a door. Now, what is popular today is floor plans that are called open concept. Or what I heard from an American real estate friend of mine, it's called the great room concept. And this is a floor plan that often combines 2 or many more rooms together, rooms that were traditionally divided, again, by floor to ceiling walls. So here's a question. How do you take a traditional floor plan and make it open concept? Well, you probably guessed it's pretty simple. You start ripping down walls. Hopefully they're not bearing walls. That means something. But you start ripping down walls and you join previously separated or disconnected rooms. Apparently half walls still count in this open concept thing, but you get the idea. The great room. That's what's really in right now. So you say, okay, well, that's really good if I want to go into renovations or real estate, but what does this possibly have to do with recovery? Well, today I want to talk about how our addictive struggles led us to a life that had a traditional floor plan, where all the rooms of our life were walled off from each other. Now, some guys would say that men naturally compartmentalize their lives and thinking at the best of times, let alone the worst of times. So someone say, well, isn't that what all men do, for example? You know, there's this great video series called Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. It's a fun series. It's got some good stuff in it about how to build a better marriage. And he makes a lot of generalizations. Some of them I think are too broad, but one of the generalizations he makes, which has some truth to it, is that men like to live their life as if it had a whole bunch of little boxes that never touch or connect. Now he says women, again, generalization, women, he says, are far more connected in their thinking and emotions because neurons are firing everywhere, more like a bowl of spaghetti. Now, generalizations aside, I think this type of descriptor does have some truth to it in that us men tend or can be fairly disconnected in the way we live our lives. That's without any addictive struggles. Now you could say, well, that's actually not a bad coping strategy. Think about it. You have a really difficult or stressful day at work, and you're able, for example, to come home and put that box away. And so, maybe you've been battling at work all day, and now you need to come home and be there for your kids. It's a good thing to compartmentalize your life, right? So you don't take your frustrations out on home. Having said that, this sort of coping strategy works against us when it comes to things like our struggle with porn. For example, we often build up walls. We experience cravings. We succumb to them by going down the porn rabbit hole. We come out of it. We cover our tracks. We shut the door. And then we attempt to go on like nothing happened. Traditional floor plan. And when we do that, what it does is it walls us off at a number of levels. It walls our lives off into separate rooms. First of all, it walls us off from our deepest values. Let's say you value loyalty and fidelity and being a good husband and a father. But then you act in ways that fundamentally violate that with your behavior. But since you have a floor-to-ceiling wall, it enables you to live with yourself, which is not good. Second thing it does, our behaviors, porn behaviors, it walls us off from our emotions. You see, in this approach, we never really have to deal with our strong emotions. The minute strong emotions emerge, we run away from them and close the door. We go to our happy room, the happy room where the carnival is always in town. Third thing it does, this disconnected, walled-off approach, is it enables us, of course, to live disconnected lives in our key relationships. Let's say, for example, our wife and kids. In times we find that disconnect growing. I read a really good book which seemed to kind of take that boxes idea from the video series, and it put it into this area of porn struggles and the effects on our relationships. It's a book called Worthy of Her Trust. And in that, the subtitle of the book is called What You Need to Do to Rebuild Sexual Integrity and Win Her Back. Now, that word integrity is going to come back later. We'll get to that. But I think it's the author is, I think, Jason Martinkus. And he talks about one of the issues that drives women nuts that they cannot understand regarding their husbands. And here is the common scenario. Let's say you have a husband who's struggling with porn, and the wife can't understand how her husband, the husband who says he loves her and loves the kids, how he can continue to look at porn when she has expressed and shown how hurtful it is to her and how damaging it is to her relationships. How can you continue to do it? Don't you care about us? Don't you love us? I don't understand. And how does a man answer that or explain his behaviors when at one level and at one room he does care for and love his wife and love his family? And Martinkus goes on and he describes how it works for a man. Now, I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm simply saying this as a descriptor. He says a man is often like one of those bedroom bureau drawers that has all sorts of different pull-out drawers. Let's say it's got, 3 sets of 3 9 drawers, and you pull each drawer out, and the shelves go all the way to the back. So think about it. He has this drawer for his work. He has this drawer for his kids. He has this drawer for his friends. He has this drawer for you, his wife. And when he opens that drawer and goes into that drawer, he is fully engaged in that drawer. So when he's in that, let's say the dad role, he's often a great father. He's present with his kids. He plays with his kids. He's there for his kids. When he goes into his wife drawer, he's a great husband. He's attentive to her, all of those things. But then he has, let's say, this other drawer. Maybe at the bottom left. Maybe it's a couple rows away from his wife drawer. And that is his porn drawer. It's his secret life drawer that he goes into. When he's in there, he's fully present there. And after he's done going into that drawer, he carefully closes the drawer and then goes back to one of the other drawers as if nothing has happened. Now, I think most of us acting out men can relate to that at some level. Okay, but is there a preferable way to live life? One of the words that we'll hear a lot about in recovery language, and you do hear a lot about even in this book I referenced, is the word integrity. The word in its purest form means the state of being whole or undivided. Think of that bureau drawer. It's a drawer with no drawers. It's all connected at the back. Another word for this word integrity, it's where we get the word integer from. I used to teach math, so I know all about integers. And an integer means a whole number. No fractions, a thing complete in itself. So, between the word integer and the word integrity, we get the whole idea that we are removing the division between the rooms of our lives. We're removing, so to speak, the sides of the drawer in our bureau drawer. Everything that keeps some parts of our lives separate from other parts of our lives. We're removing that so that we can live in wholeness. She said, okay, well, what does it mean then to live or operate in this sort of integrity? Well, the first thing it does is it means that we don't have divided thinking, where we think one way some of the time and think another way at different times. Over time, in addictions and porn behaviors, we can become so different in our thinking that it's almost like we're two different people. We become fractured, fractions. And that's, of course, the premise of Robert Louis Stevenson's book, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Two struggling sides of our personality or thinking, both which want to be expressed. A different example of that is found in the biblical passage in the book of James, which you could translate a few different ways, but this is some of the translations. A double-minded man is unstable in all he does. Or a different translation, whoever wavers in his mind is troubled in all his ways. Or yet again, a double-minded man is inconstant in all his ways. You see, a double-minded person is a person who can't make up their mind because they have different minds about different things. They get caught in indecision. They're not whole in their thinking. So a person of integrity is a person who has an open concept of a connected life in their thoughts and motives and personality. They're integrated in their thinking. They are whole-mindedness. Second place that I think integrity comes in is, where we could follow this open concept idea of recovery, is we're no longer hiding from our strongest emotions, even those negative ones that we have. We've learned to accept them, live with them, and not let them run our lives or have us run from those emotions. Regarding this idea of being integrated with our emotions, I've been reading quite a bit about the whole area of cognitive behavior therapy recently. And it's caused me to look at some of our emotional responses a little differently. Here's an example. Most of us would think, for example, that the emotion of anger can cause us to do negative things. I did that because of anger. Well, let me throw it at this is what this one article says. For example, let's say you have a mosquito bite and you feel a terrible urge to scratch the mosquito bite. If you go ahead and scratch it, what does this say about your willingness to feel the itching sensation? Well, what you're actually saying is, I don't want to experience the itch. I'm running away from the itch. That's why I'm scratching it. And you'd be right. So when you have an emotion well up, a strong emotion, let's say anger, for example, do you act because you want to experience anger or because you don't want to experience anger? It's the same answer. You don't want to experience that strong emotion. You don't want to live with it. You want to scratch that mosquito bite. So an unhealthy person runs from strong emotions. A healthy person lives with strong emotions, even strong negative emotions. They don't hive those emotions off. They don't wall them off floor to ceiling. They don't have to run from them or distract themselves from them. They become more integrated at an emotional level. Open concept emotions. Here's a third sort of recovery, open concept recovery, that I would say is all about being a person of integrity. It means that there's not secret walled off rooms that we hide from other people. You always hear those news stories. Well, they were such a quiet, polite neighbor. All the time they were developing this secret weapons cache or something, some other crazy thing. I've met and worked with people who developed a whole secret identity online that they use to hide from other people. The idea of being somebody who's living out open concept recovery means this: we are the same sort of person in different situations. Remember back in high school, we often found ourselves tempted to act in different ways depending on the social situations we were in. Now looking back, we would liken that, of course, to immaturity. Well, we were one way this way with these friends and another way with this friends. In other words, we weren't a person of integrity. One of the biggest critiques of sometimes religious people is that they are a different person on Sunday than they maybe are the rest of the week. Or somebody who claims to be a spiritual or religious or Christian person, and yet their business practices are dishonest or they lack integrity. And we would say there's no integration between what they, those two parts of their life. Business is business. My faith is my faith. That's a person without integrity. Some people have said real integrity is that we are the same person when people are watching, and we're that same person when somebody or nobody is watching. Now, just like buying my first crappy home, let me just say this. Renovations in our lives and us becoming and creating a more of an open concept life doesn't happen overnight. We don't renovate old beat up homes overnight in one day. What we do is we start room by room, dealing with the walls that really create the inconsistency between different rooms in our lives. For example, if you remove walls between two rooms and the two rooms were painted different colors, you now need to repaint the new bigger room, hopefully the same color, right? That's part of becoming an open concept person. So ask yourself, who does my wife, family, friends believe me to be? Is that a true reflection of who I am? Or am I a different person in different situations? Where do I remain hidden and caught up in projecting a false image of who I am? In what areas do I have to wall off strong emotions that I don't want to deal with? How can I begin to allow some key trusted people into my life, into those maybe walled off or hidden parts of my personal life, so that I can begin to integrate those rooms in my life that I've wanted nobody to go into? So, let me just say, it's time to start renovating. It's time to start tearing the walls down and giving yourself and others access to every area of your life. Here's to open concept recovery. Here's to being a person of integrity. Have a great day.